Paul Graham from OptimalBody.ca. Today I'll be answering the question, do genetics play a role in obesity? Yes, not surprisingly, genetics do play a role in obesity. However, researchers still don't have a lot of clarity to what degree genetics play a role in obesity and how it plays a role in obesity. There's a lot of research out there that indicates different ways in which it impacts obesity, to what degree it does, but there's no widely held belief in terms of to what degree. I'm going to go through some of the ways in which genetics play a role in obesity, and a lot of this will surprise most people. Genetics seem to impact hunger levels, caloric intake, satiety, control over eating, activity levels, store body fat, and to what degree people use food to manage stress. If you're looking at those factors and really stop and think about this, the vast majority of the way it seems that genetics impact obesity is through how much food a person eats, or controlling how much food you eat. It's been my experience that people often talk about having poor genetics in terms of their metabolism. And this is one of the big things I think that a lot of people are confused about. They often think they should be losing weight at a faster pace than they are, and so they think they have a really slow metabolism. But research indicates there's actually not nearly as much variance as you would think in resting metabolism from one individual to another. Research indicates there's not a wide range in resting metabolism for different individuals. There's, of course, outliers to this. For example, one study found that 68% of the population fell within 6 to 8% range of the average resting metabolism. The study also found that 96% of the population fell within a 10 to 16% range from the average resting metabolism. Put this into real-world terms, they'll often use 2,000 calories as the average nutritional intake. This isn't talking about resting metabolism, but I'm going to use this number to help you kind of get an understanding of what type of range this would really be. So if the average person was burning out 2,000 calories, that means that the range would be between 1,680 calories to 2,320 calories for 96% of the population. So although this is quite a bit of a range, it's not that far off or below, not nearly as much as probably what most people think. So if you're looking at that in terms of the lower range of having slower metabolism, that's about 300 calories below average per day. So not that huge of a range. The other important thing when it comes to genetics and obesity is to understand what a huge impact environment has even on your genetics, or in terms of how you're experiencing your genetics. To try to help you understand this, obesity rates have skyrocketed since the 1970s. However, our genetics haven't really had a chance to change since the 1970s. Genetically, that's a very small window. So what's changed since then? It's not obviously the genetics. Again, it's very complicated, and there's a lot of factors, but it has more to do with the environment. So in terms of, we have access to a lot more food, where again, those genetic factors make it harder for certain people to control or moderate how much food they're eating. So for example, on how in the real world the environment can change. So in the 1970s, the average American was spending about 26% of their food budget on eating out. If you fast forward to 2006, the average American was now spending 46% of their food budget on eating out. So the environment has changed in terms of people are now eating out at restaurants more frequently. Again, this is where the genetics can play a role with the environment. So it's going to be a lot harder for certain people that are genetically predisposed to control how much food they're eating at restaurants more than other people. Another example in terms of how the environment's changed. Let's use McDonald's as an example. Since the franchise opened to now, their serving size of French fries has 3 times more calories. Again, to someone that's genetically predisposed, it's going to be a lot harder to control that food intake. So the good news is, even if you're genetically more predisposed to being overweight or obese, you can do a lot of things that are in your control to change your environment to make it less likely that the genetics are going to create an issue. Again, research is indicating the biggest factors are that genetics impact food intake. So if you're making different choices with your nutrition, it actually makes it a lot easier to help regulate how much food you're taking in. So you can look towards what foods can make it easier to get more satisfied. It's very simple, but can have a huge impact on health. Do genetics play a role in obesity? Definitely. At the end of the day, though, you don't have control over the genetics you're starting from. You have more control in terms of choices and how you're setting up your environment, food choices, exercise choices. Just generally focus on the things that are in your control, and you're going to have a lot more power in terms of helping to fight obesity.